Fundamental duties. The fundamental duties, as we all say, the original constitution contained only fundamental rights and the original constitution did not contain any fundamental duty. Now, the fundamental duties were added to the constitution. The fundamental duties were added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. It added the fundamental duties to our constitution. In 2002, there was an amendment, 86 Constitutional Amendment Act 2002, which added one more fundamental duty. So we say that the original constitution contained only the fundamental rights. It did not contain the fundamental duty. When we have the fundamental duties are added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976. Again in 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002, again another fundamental right was added to our constitution. They are placed in part 4A of the constitution. Now we know what is part 1 is related to the union and its territory. Part 2 is related to the citizenship. Part 3 is fundamental rights. Part 4 is GPSP. And part 4A is related to the fundamental duties. They were added in the part 4A of the constitution. So part 4A of the constitution containing articles, one article is 51A. So the rights and the duties of the citizens are correlative and inseparable. This is an MCQ. We say that we are correlating the fundamental rights as well as the fundamental duties. So the rights and the duties of the citizens, fundamental rights as well as fundamental duties, they are correlative. They are relative to one another and they are inseparable. Correlative and inseparable. They are inspired from the USSR. Now when we look into from the beginning, original constitution did not mention anything about the fundamental rights. Only due to the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, they were being added to our constitution. Right. Now another amendment is 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002, which added one more fundamental right, one extra. Now we say that they belong to part 4 of the constitution. In the part 4 of the constitution, we will be having the articles from article 51A. Article is 51A, part 4 of the constitution. So part 4A of the constitution, article 51A. The rights as well as the duties, we say the rights, fundamental rights as well as the duties, they are inseparable. We cannot separate them, inseparable, and then we call them as correlative. We cannot separate them and it is correlative. It is related to one another. They are inseparable. We say the keyword is inseparable and they are related to one another, correlative. They are inspired by the USSR. Other democracies do not list fundamental rights in their constitutions. The major democracies which have fundamental duties, but the duties are not listed in the constitution, like Germany, USA, etc. Japanese constitution is the only democracy which contains a list of the constitution which is containing the list of citizens' duties is Japanese constitution. The Japanese constitution, now it is the only constitution which contains the list, only democracy which contains the list of duties of the citizens. Now, under whose recommendations, fundamental duties were incorporated into the constitution. Swaran Singh Committee recommendations of 1976. 1976, we will be having the Swaran Singh Committee recommendations. The Swaran Singh Committee, 1976 recommendations for the fundamental duties. Though it suggested 8 fundamental duties, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act included 10 fundamental duties. Committee recommended the inclusion of separate chapter of the fundamental duties, but it was not accepted. It was made part 4A. They recommended a separate chapter. Penalty or punishment for non-observance of fundamental duties is not accepted. These laws cannot be declared unconstitutional or for abridging the fundamental rights or infringing on other provisions of the Constitution. So when we are making a fundamental law for implementing fundamental duty, when we are having a law for implementing, there is a law for implementing the fundamental duty. This law cannot be declared unconstitutional. Law cannot be declared unconstitutional. The law cannot be declared unconstitutional for abridging the fundamental rights, or we have infringing for abridging the fundamental rights, or it is for infringing on other provisions. When it is infringing other provisions, the duty to pay tax is a fundamental duty, but it is not included. Now, what is the list of the fundamental duties? The first is to abide by the Constitution. When we are having the Constitution, to respect the ideals of the Constitution, national flag and national anthem. We have flag and we have a song, right? We have the song and the flag, the national anthem. It is the anthem actually. National anthem and the national flag must be respected. Abide by the Constitution. So the first thing is we have to speak about the Constitution. When we speak about the Constitution, we have to from where the Constitution has come from. The Constitution came from the freedom, the national struggle for the freedom, right? The national struggle, there was a struggle for the freedom. Only through the freedom struggle, we got freedom and we have a constitution to cherish the noble ideals that inspired the national struggle for the freedom. The first one is A, B, C, D, right? E, F, G, H, I, J, K. A to K. A, K. Right. Now, what is a constitution? Abide by the Constitution, respects its ideals, national flag, and in the anthem. Flag and anthem. Right. Once we are dealing with the Constitution, we need to mention. Once we are dealing with the Constitution, we need to mention how does the Constitution came into. The Constitution came from a national struggle. A national freedom struggle. We have got noble ideas. Ideals have inspired the national struggle for freedom. So ideals are inspiring. Ideals are inspiring the national struggle for the freedom. So to abide by the Constitution, we need to abide, and then we have from the Constitution, we have a flag and then we have an anthem, right? The second one is how, from where the Constitution, national struggle for freedom. The national struggle for freedom has a noble ideals. This ideal has inspired a freedom struggle. Once we got the freedom, freedom is what? Sovereignty is what we have. The sovereignty is the freedom. Sovereignty, unity, and integrity is what the freedom. Sovereignty, unity, and integrity. We need to protect it again. Another foreign rule must not come, right? So we need to protect the sovereignty. we have unity and also integrity of India. Sovereignty, unity, and the integrity of the India. The first thing is to abide by the constitution. We are following the constitution, right? Constitution. And to respect, we need to give respect to the national flag and anthem, right? The first one. The second one being that national freedom struggle. The freedom struggle is because of a noble idea, an ideal, noble ideal. The third one, once we got freedom, we have sovereignty and we are united together. So there is unity and integrity. Unity and integrity, we are speaking Indian level because it is a duty of the citizen. Dignity comes in the fundamental rights as well as fundamental duties, dignity of women. But for India, we are speaking the unity, integrity, and sovereignty. Three things are remembered as a link. Now, to protect the sovereignty, we have to defend the country. Defend the country. To protect the sovereignty, to protect, we need to defend the country and to render the national service. We need to render the national service when we are called upon to do so. To protect the country, we need to defend it. Defend it and to render the national service. We need to go and do the national service. So, four things are remembered chronologically, right? Now, since we are a diverse country, right? Diverse country, what holds us together? Culture holds us together, right? So culture is also initially when the humans evolved, they started worshipping nature as a part of the culture. Nature as a part of the culture. When we are common, what is a common thing? Culture is common and nature is a part of the culture. Now, EFG must be remembered as what is common, nature. Common is culture, culture is natural environment, right? This is how we remember E, F, and then we have G. Now, from first, when we are revising once again, the first thing we will speak about is the Constitution. What do we speak about the Constitution? The national flag and the anthem, right? For Constitution, we had a noble ideal of the freedom struggle. Freedom struggle. When we got freedom, we have to protect the sovereignty, integrity, and unity. To protect this, we need to go for defending the country. Defending the country and render national service. They say that we have to do the national service. It is not a job, it is a service. National service when called upon to do so, right? This is how we are speaking at the country level. Now, when we are having a common brotherhood, this is because of our culture. And our culture is oriented towards natural environment. Natural environment. Our culture is oriented towards the natural environment. So, we say it as constitution, ideals for the national freedom struggle, sovereignty, unity, integrity, countries protect, defend, and common culture, natural environment. What is the common spirit of common brotherhood? And this is women also we are speaking over here, right? We have a spirit, the spirit of the common brotherhood. The spirit, there is a spirit of the common brotherhood, right? And we have to renounce, we are renouncing the practices. There are practices which are derogatory. which are derogatory to the dignity of the women. We have a spirit. What is the spirit? The spirit is of a common brotherhood. So we will be having a spirit, and the spirit is of a common, we are brothers, right? So the common brotherhood. And here it is brother and then women, sisters, right? So for sisters we are saying that please renounce any practices which are derogatory, here dignity of the women, right? Derogatory for the dignity of the women. Then we are speaking about the culture. We have a composite culture. To value and preserve the rich heritage of the country's composite culture, we need to value it, we need to respect it, at the same time we need to preserve it. It is a rich heritage. So it is a rich heritage of a country is having a composite culture. There is a rich heritage of a composite culture, right? After the culture, natural environment. To protect and improve the natural environment is forest, is having a lake, then it becomes a river. Wildlife will come towards it for drinking water. Forest, lake, river, wildlife, and to have compassion for the living creatures. Then we are going for compassion to living creatures, right? Remaining we have four. So let us recap the first seven. When we are speaking about the constitution, we need to abide, follow the constitution. Otherwise, we will get arrested, imprisoned. Right? Abide by the constitution and respect the ideals, national flag, and national anthem. So to abide by the constitution, this is how we say that, to abide by the constitution. We are going by the constitution and we are respecting its ideals, national flag, national anthem. After the constitution, we go that to cherish, we need to feel proud of the noble ideals which inspired the national struggle for freedom. To protect then the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, to defend the country and to render the national services when called upon to do so. We are defending the country and we are rendering the national services when called upon to do so. Then two, the spirit of common brotherhood and renounce the derogatory practices which are derogatory to the dignity of the women. Value and preserve the rich heritage of country's composite culture. Protect and improve the natural environment including the lakes. The natural environment includes here is the lakes, rivers, wildlife, right? Then scientific temper. We need to, when we are having temper, interest, right? But when we are short tempered, we go for destruction of the public property. When we are scientific temper and short temper, right? To develop the scientific temper, humanism and a spirit of inquiry and reformist spirit inspired from the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, had a reformist spirit. Spirit of inquiry, we need to inquire and then reform. Develop scientific temper. So directly from the nature, we are coming the science. Nature, science, scientific temper, and to safeguard the public property and to abjure violence. Then for excellence, we need education. For excellence, we need education. To strive towards excellence in all the spheres of individual. This is all the spheres of the individual and collective activity. All the sphere is going to include the individual activity as well as the collective activity, so that the nation is constantly rises a higher level of endeavor and achievement. To provide opportunities for the education or to his child, or it is a ward between the age of 6 to 14 years. Now let us discuss them. First is to abide by the constitution. To abide by the constitution, right? And what are the ideals mentioned in the constitution? And national flag and national anthem. So the first one is the constitution. We need to follow the constitution, right? The second one, once we are following the constitution, national struggle for freedom. National struggle for freedom, we have noble ideals. We got freedom. We need to protect the sovereignty, integrity, and unity of the individuals. For that, we need to defend the country and to render the national services. Render national services. That's it. These four are one pair. Then we have common. Common culture, nature. Right. Common is spirit of common brotherhood. Spirit of common brotherhood. And we need to renounce. Stop using the practices which are derogatory. Renounce the practices which are derogatory. Practices which are derogatory to the dignity of the women. So we have the dignity of the women. Then culture, right? Composite culture. It is a composite culture. To value, and we need to value it and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Right. After the culture, we will be having the natural environment. To preserve the natural environment, like the forest, we will be having the lakes, rivers, and then we have the animals, right? Then scientific temper and protect the public property. Public property. So we'll be having the scientific temper and then we have the property as well. So public property. After the scientific temper and public property, individual and collective and sphere of excellence in the individual and collective spheres, right? Then we'll be having the education. Education for the wards is 6 to 14 years is the education. So the wards is 6 to 14 years education. Now, what are the features of the fundamental duties? Some of the moral duties, some of them are moral duties, while other are the civic duties. They refer to such values which have been part of the Indian tradition, mythology, religion, and then we have the practices. Confined to the citizens only, and they do not extend to the foreigners. So these are confined to the citizens and they do not extend to the foreigners. The fundamental duties are non-justiciable. We are not justified. They are not justified. What is the significance of the fundamental duties? They serve as a reminder to the citizens that while enjoying their duties, we have the citizens are enjoying the duties. They enjoying the duties, they must also be conscious of the duties they owe to the country. So we say that the citizens, while they are enjoying the duty, they must owe to their country as well. Warning against anti-national and anti-social activities. So we have activities is anti-national activities and anti-social activities. Anti-national and we have the anti-social activities. They serve as a source of inspiration for the citizens and promote a sense of the discipline and commitment. They remind the citizens of their necessity in achieving the national goals. Help the courts in examining the national constitutional validity of the laws. If a law seeks to give effect to the fundamental rights, then law may consider reasonable in relation to Article 14 and 19. They are enforceable by the law. The Parliament can provide for the imposition of an appropriate penalty or punishment for the failure of to fulfill any of them. Verma Committee observations. So, next we have the Verma Committee observations. Identify the existence of the legal provisions for the implementation of some of the fundamental duties. The legal provisions are identified in the Verma Committee. Now, what are these legal provisions? The National Honor Act is to prevent disrespect to the Constitution of the India, national flag, and then we have the national anthem. The first is going to be the National Honor Act. We have the National Honor Act of 1971. The National Honor Act is the Verma Committee is going to have the National Honor Act of 1971 is the Verma Committee that prevents the disrespect. Here, the what is prevented? The disrespect is prevented. The disrespect to the national flag, national anthem, and then the Constitution. Various criminal laws are in force, providing the punishment for encouraging enmity. The protection of the Civil Rights Act of 1955. So we'll be having protection of Civil Rights Act as punishment related to the caste and the religion is what we have the Civil Rights Act. Prevention of the caste and religious violences. Indian Penal Code IPC declares the imputations and assertions prejudicial to the national interrogation in integration as punishable offense. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So IPC and then we have the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The first one is going to be the National Honor Act, IPC, and Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. Representation of the People's Act 1951. So we'll be having the Representation of the People's Act, Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Then we'll be having the Forest Conservation Act of 1980.